Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast Anonymous, your foremost West Coast recovery podcast. And I have a complete honor today to introduce to you a man that has been a major part of my life and thousands of other lives in Southern California. Um, Lynn Huckabee, Pop, it's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. And
Yeah.
first and foremost, I want to say what a complete honor it is for me and how proud I am to see you on the other side of this computer screen. I'm humbled. I'm truly humbled.
So, to give you guys a little background, I call him Pop. So, Pop owns a number of sober living homes. I was I'm probably the one of the oldest living left clients. I first came to him in must have been 1998 or 2000.
Yeah,
Pop, how long you been clean now?
I'm coming up on 29 years.
29 years. So when I met him and moved in with him, he had three. He had
So
3
that's
years. He had 3 years clean. Um, he only had one house. He's got like 18 houses now. So you can see over the years. Pop, give him a little bit of your background. Pop, where were you born and raised up?
oh gosh, I was born and raised here in Bakersfield, California, in a little farming town called Lamont, California. Uh, my parents migrated from Oklahoma and Arkansas during the Dust Bowl, which was the late 40s. So my parents and me, we basically did the work that the Mexican immigrants are doing today.
Right, right.
We followed the potato crops all up and down the state of California. And, you know, uh, I was brought up in the 60s, so that says quite a bit. Sex, drugs, rock and roll,
Right.
nobody cared. Uh, when we're talking, I don't know, but and a lot of people want to play victim. A lot of people want to blame.
Right.
I have absolutely nobody. My parents were hardworking, salt of the earth people. My mom and dad got married at 16 years old because that's what they did back then.
Right.
They didn't shack up. They didn't
Right.
sleep around. So they got married. And my grandpa told my dad, "You're crazy. You're both 16 years old." And my dad said, "Well, we might be, but I want to marry her anyway." And they got married, went to Klamath Falls, Oregon the next day and to work in the potatoes up there. And I guess I was conceived in Oregon, Klamath Falls, Oregon. That means my parents had sex.
Right.
I don't know. I don't like to talk a lot about what we call drunkalogs or drug logs.
No, no, no.
But we went through what we went through, to get to be where we're at today. I'm
Right.
71 years old. I'm coming up on 29 years old, clean and sober. And I maybe wasn't the best parent, but I'm a hell of a grandpa.
Well, and so the reason I ask everybody that, Pop, is because what unifies us is our disease, right? So our disease is what unifies our programs, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've heard a lot of different stories so far. I've heard, just like yours. I had great parents, right? Like Anthony, I can't play the victim. It wasn't Anthony Owen's fault. Like I
Yeah.
had everything, right? Like Dad worked in the oil fields, made a very good money, had a stay-at-home mom, and she rode very hard for her kids. And I made choices. I made choices. And that's why I asked that, Pop. So that everybody goes, "Oh man, you know what? I can't blame my parents no more because I
No.
met I sponsor a couple guys that I can't get them to understand. Like, no, you made a choice, bud. Like, you could have stayed in the house and didn't have to come off the front porch. You could have just hung out.
You
You know,
know, I go inside all the prisons and the jails and I share there and I talk about life is nothing but I'm a direct result of the choices I made 28 years ago. You're the
right,
direct result you made so many years. You know what I mean?
right,
And it's for preparation and opportunity meet,
right,
and I was just ready for that moment. And here
right,
comes the opportunities.
right.
And God's been really, really, really good to me. Recovery's been really, really
Really, really
good to
good.
me.
Really, yeah.
you know, and I'm still amazed. I am still amazed. I think God was a little bit of show off because he took a derelict like me. He took a no count like me. He took a menace to society like me.
Right.
And he made him into where I'm one of the pillars of the community here in Bakersfield. And I'm soon to have that. I've got a little ranch, me and my wife in Oklahoma, and I'm trying to establish that there, you know?
And
And
that's what we do.
yeah,
You know, I mean, when we get to our 12th step and it says we are to carry the message, right?
yeah,
That's our commitment. I am
yeah,
obligated to whatever 12 step program that saved my life. I am obligated to keep that thing going. You know, I am obligated to carry its message and help the next guy, the which it was given to me.
yeah.
You know, so Pop, what age did you start to realize, man, this probably ain't working out, right? I probably need to do something different.
So, I wanted to change my life way into my mid 30s. I went through that, where you couldn't do enough, you couldn't drink enough, you
Right.
couldn't use enough. I wanted to change, and many, many times I threw I threw the paraphernalia, I threw the drugs. I'm going to quit, and I made that vow, and I throw it all in the dumpster. And next thing you know, the next day, I'm trying to find the bullshit I threw away.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
uh, I just did not know how. You
Right.
know, I literally went through a rehab. It was a detox in 1976. So that tells you a little bit how long I went back.
Right.
I had a parole officer that put me in a program over at the coast because I did one of them geographics.
Right.
And that was in 1988.
Wow.
So, recovery, once you get recovery in your head, you're really never the same. It will screw your using days up from here on out, okay?
Right.
And that's what happened, you know. Uh, Go ahead.
Well, well, let's go back to I think your recovery home started in what, 98, 99.
So when you said that this January, Freedom House will be in existence for 25 years.
Right.
So 25 years ago, we got the home that you came into.
Right.
So you was probably one of my very first
One of the
homes.
first. Like I was
And,
I was 18, 19 years old, right? And I
and
remember I called you up, probation was on my neck, and I'd already been kicked out of John Slos's. I've already kicked out of the animal house. I think Jason's Retreat had already kicked me out once. And I heard your name and I called you up, and you know you're pretty loving now, but you were a lot more loving back then, right? A little more softer, I think. And so I came to the Freedom House, and oh man, I'm trying to remember his name. I'll think about it. But there's one more guy that's still around that he's living in Texas working for the oil fields, and I think
Smiley,
no, not Smiley.
Jordan. Okay.
No, not Jordan. I've just talked to Jordan too, but no, he's a younger. His dad was an older
Carl
home.
Pritchard.
Carl Pritchard.
Uh-huh.
So me and Carl were in there at the same, and we were both the same age, little kids.
Yeah.
Little kids. And that's where I was first really introduced to a 12-step program, was at your house. I think I only lasted like a week with John Slows. He didn't play.
Yeah.
Right? No, John would throw you out for no reason. He didn't care. Like, I mean, you just, and I finally understood and was taught grace and loving kindness and selflessness, through your homes. Because if I sit back and think, I bet I've been thrown out 6 times, 7 times, right?
Yeah.
I've probably been to your house. And to let you guys all know, I spent my first, this last time I got out on parole, I spent a year at Lynn's house before I came here.
Okay.
That year at Lynn's house is what got me off the parole, because California, bless its heart, you only got to do a year now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you only got to do a year. Here in Idaho, Pop, they got like 10, 15-year tails on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I got introduced to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and another 12-step program. and it saved my life.
Yeah.
But it took that seed being planted in '98. I didn't get sober till I was 38 years old, right?
Yeah.
And it took 20, I mean, almost 20 years, 18 years before I finally said, hey, you know what? That old man probably knows what he's talking about, right? Uh, and guys, I worked for Lynn. I was his cook for a long time. I in and out of the house. I couldn't tell you. Chris has thrown me out probably 3 times. And I remember he was hiding one time, Pop. He was hiding on the porch when I was oh, I can't remember her name. But anyways, I had this girlfriend I was completely strung out on.
Okay.
And I was trying to slide back in the house late. And Chris was hiding in the
Yeah.
main house where the office is on the
Yeah.
other side of the wall, the porch. And I took a couple steps and he popped up and I said, oh Lord. He goes, oh yeah, pack your stuff. You know, let me ask you this, Pop. So, over the years you've been involved in a 12-step program and you and your wife have been pillars in that community. Father, when it comes to service, what is it that service to the program means to you?
It means everything to me. There's a sign. I volunteered at a youth camp for young men for about 11 years, and it's
I
Camp Owens.
remember. I
And
remember you go up there. I can't remember
above
what
one of
day.
the
Yeah.
fireplace, above one of the fireplaces, it says, "He who chooses to serve others best serves himself."
Right.
He who chooses to serve others best serves himself. And I believe whatever you put out in the universe, it comes around full circle.
Right.
And here you are interviewing me for a podcast. I've never not had a service commitment.
Right.
Uh, I I had a service commitment at Laredo for 25 years,
Right.
and I'm actually going there again next week. But because of my lifestyle, I've kind of got dual citizenship.
Right.
So one of my former clients took over my H&I panel that I had
Right.
there at Laredo. Uh, and you talked about elderly ladies, I think, before we turn this on. So you can be of service in all kinds of different capacities.
Right.
And I got back there to Oklahoma. I'm 10 miles out in the country. And see, there's a when you do something for others, there's a fulfillment in that.
Right.
There's a fulfillment in that. You know what I mean? There's a good feeling that you get from that. And it ain't to toot your horn or nothing like that. And you talked about your roommate lady. Well,
Yeah.
I ended up with 3 ladies there. One was 87,
Right.
one was 91, and one was my wife's age, so she wasn't that old. She's 65,
Right.
but she's disabled. You know, and she was my wife's friend way back from elementary school. So we
Okay.
just started doing things for them.
Right.
And the one lady, she's 93 now, and and she don't have anybody.
Right.
She's still got her little ranch. She raises miniature horses. Her husband's been gone. She has 2 grandkids. They're both living 30 miles away. And I would go over there and I'd take a crew. I've got my son-in-law and my grandson living with us, and my granddaughter, and we'd go. I'd take my riding lawnmower, my weed eater, and then she had a brush hog, and I would brush hog her little pastures.
Right.
My son, and we would just go bling her house.
Right.
And so, and the one that was 87, she's dead now.
Right.
She's dead now. And can I say that she at one time was my wife's mother-in-law?
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? And that's still her mother-in-law, right? She didn't divorce her.
Right.
She was one of the most beautiful spirits you could ever imagine. My wife, since she's taken ownership, right? She realized that her and her first husband would have probably stayed together if it wasn't for booze and drugs,
Right.
And anyway, her name's Bernice, bless her soul. And so, you wait for this burning bush, and you're not going to hear no burning bush. You just look for the need.
Right.
We've taken from our families, we've taken from our communities, we've taken from our country. And so part of the living amends is trying to give back to that family, that community, and our country, and you will find the little ways,
Right.
And so I have, and it's always the life that I have today. The reason Freedom House came into existence started just out of service work.
Right.
That's God just said here. God just said here, and all of a sudden we're get offered a 6-bedroom house, and that's
And then the house
we live
next
in.
door. That was the craziest thing. You
Yeah,
were able to buy the house right next door, and they were matching houses, right? Like matching
yeah.
Victorian houses.
Can I tell you a little story on that one?
Let me hear it.
So I'm renting the one that we lived in, the one you stayed in,
Right.
and I'm renting it. And way back then, it was $900 plus utilities,
Right.
But that was 25 years ago.
It's cheap.
And I'll make this short. When I first moved there, that house was for sale for $175,000, and nobody wanted it.
Oh wow.
And then the housing market skyrocketed about 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, and by now I've become really close friends with that neighbor.
Right.
And and I've got a little recovery home going on. He ended up selling that place for $375,000. That was 20 years ago.
Right.
There ain't no way that I'm
No.
supposed to qualify for a home $375,000.
Right.
And I had this little old lady that worked for this loan agency, right? Realty, and it was I can't even. But anyway, I'm going to try to make it short. She kept asking me these questions. Well, can you get this guy? You're leasing that. You're making that. Can you get these people to write letters for you? Because Freedom House had never been in the newspapers. I had never advertised. I never showed a whole bunch of income.
Right.
And so I had no way to show anything. And she kept asking me, well, can you get this? Can you get this? And I got letters from John Slows, Miss Jenny over at Jason's
Yeah.
Retreat.
Yeah.
And this lady kept doing this, right? She's a little bitty short gal. Anyway, I got approved for the loan, Anthony. I got
Wow.
approved. And I got tears coming down my eyes. It was a long process. She ended up pulling me aside. She didn't want her boss to know. She pulled me aside in the next room. She said, I don't think you remember me. She said, but I used to take my mom to meetings, and you was a speaker at the basement, and she had heard me speak, and her mom heard me speak, and she said my mom now has 5 years clean.
That's what we do.
That mom knew that girl knew my heart.
Right.
She made that loan happen.
Right.
But she knew, and I never knew that till after I got the loan.
Right.
And her mama at that time had 5 years clean.
Wow.
That's God working.
That's God. And Pop, I can remember so many God moments living there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the things I've seen restored in guys' lives and the jobs. And I mean, I did see a lot come and go.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, yeah.
And then they might come back a couple times and they'll finally, I mean, it took me probably 8 times before I finally said, all right, I got to figure this thing out. Now let me talk to you about this, Pop. So you've had the opportunity on working with your 12-step program on a bigger level, conventions, things like that. What has been your experience, and what have you seen in the fulfillment with working on and putting together big, huge things that where people are coming together like that?
Well, it's funny you ask that because we're fixing to have we've done a camp out every year.
Right.
Alumni comes, clients, friends, and everybody in recovery. We usually get about 250 to 300 people.
Right.
And we're not able to do the camp out this year.
Oh, so no way.
We've always done it in September, and so we're going to do a big old shindig there at my program.
Okay.
And so we've rented bounce houses, water slides, a mechanical bull, a DJ.
Right.
We're going to cook up hamburgers and hot dogs. And what's fortunate for me is we've always had, and my wife, that's where she shines. My wife is organized to the T. We put on big campouts. We put on weddings. We put on celebrations of life. You know, our facility, a lot of people, especially people that's been where we've been, don't have the money, you know what I mean?
Right.
For they don't have the ability. So we probably had dozens and dozens of celebrations of life or memorials, if you will, at our program. And we've
Right.
had about a dozen to 15 weddings.
I've got
You
you
know,
wouldn't believe the pictures that
that
I
Carl
have
Pritchard
saved.
was married at our place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, him and Vanessa. They're
Oh,
not
wow.
together no more. They got married there. Yeah.
I've actually, so I've been gone now, Pop, almost 6 years, right? No, going on my 7th year. And every time someone passes away from Bakersfield and somebody posts a picture, I save it to my phone.
Okay.
And so since I've been doing this podcast thing, I went through my phone, all the pictures in my iPhone a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And oh man, just
Yeah.
tons of them.
The memories. The
Um,
memories. You know how we have memories come up on our phone,
right.
and all of a sudden that guy's not there. You talk to
No,
John Slows, Bill Irwin, they're all gone.
right.
They're all gone. Uh, about 3 years ago, uh, I had about 5 former clients in 6 weeks, and 2 of them I had terminated, and they begged me to come back, and I wouldn't allow them to come back. And then a week later, they're dead. And every one of them overdosed on fentanyl.
Right.
And I wanted to quit. It was like it was like a punch after a punch after a punch. I just kept getting, hitting the gut, and I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit. I couldn't take it. When you terminate somebody and then you get a call the next morning from the morgue or the coroner's office because they end up getting their IDs there at Freedom House.
Right. Right. Everybody. Right.
And so they've gotten their ID and they're ended up at the coroner's office. And I had just terminated that young man. And I've had that happen about 3 or 4 times. That's a hard one to take.
It is, Pop, but like we were talking about before we started recording, we make choices. We make like I know your guys' book says it, our book says it. To drink is to die. You know what I mean? Like, and we never know, Pop, when the last one's going to be, right?
I believe it was Miss Linda, Bill Wilson's wife, and I believe the first 6 people that he worked with
Yeah.
got drunk.
Oh yeah.
They got
Oh yeah.
drunk.
Oh
and
yeah.
he
The
wanted,
doctor
and he wanted to quit.
and the doctor told him, "Hey, Bill, have you stayed sober?" And he goes,
That
"Yeah."
was
Well,
that
it
was
worked, it
that
Bill.
was his wife Lois that told him that.
Right.
He kept talking about and he's wanting to quit and he's getting disheartened and they're all getting drunk and she told him, she said, "You ain't Bill."
Right.
So sometimes
Right.
he wasn't. And
That's the
then
thing.
I think God has a way of balancing things out.
Right.
You'll hear about a death, and the next thing you know, I get a phone call, and somebody just had a brand new baby, or
Right.
so somebody just got married, somebody just got a job, and somebody just got their contractor's license. So if you look, you can get caught up in the doom and the gloom.
Right.
You know what I mean? And our disease, I can call it Satan if you like. He loves to try to sneak in through the back door.
Right.
And he loves to get you vulnerable when you're hurting. When you're hurting. You know what I mean? And so God's always had a way just to come in there, send you guys right at the right time, right there when I'm hurting.
Right.
Right there when the finances are funny.
Right.
Oh gosh, I went through the economy crash and Bidenomics.
Right. And that's going back to the service, right? Like, so the drug book says work with another alcoholic will save the day every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I just was talking to some people. So me and Mama, we go down on Sundays and we feed the homeless at a church.
Yeah.
And somebody was asking me what I felt like was the key to peace, right? Having peace of mind. And without even trying, I kind of got roped into where I'm committed now, right? I go down there, everybody that I help is 70, 80 years old, and they're the only people in this place helping feed. And I show up and they're just relieved, like, whoo, he's going to do all the lifting, right?
Yeah.
And the peace, the happiness that I've got since I've been down there, right? It's selfless service, Pop. I can't, and it affects every spiritual aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
You know,
I,
my health is better, my peace of mind's better. I know God looks down and says, "Okay, I got some more for you to help you." You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
you're doing what I want you to do. You know, then I don't know how to. The service is once you go through the steps and you clean up a house and you start to work with other people. I think that's when the miracles happen, Pop, because you get to see them.
I, and then there's a song, and I don't remember the song, but the song talks about hearing voices. I hear voices. And
Right,
just right in the midst of his storm, right in the midst of the storm, he heard his grandpa talking to him. He heard his grandma talking to him.
right,
It's okay, but just drink one. In other words, he heard voices all the time. And when he was in the midst of his storm, he heard the voices that gave him encouragement. And
right,
if you listen to enough speakers, you read enough literature, you get a spiritual connection with the power greater than yourself,
right,
which I have. You know
right,
what I mean? And then you read the biblical verses, you read the literature from the 12-step program. Right there in the nick of time, I can do all things through Christ who
right,
strengthens me. You will
right,
hear them voices. You know
right,
what I mean? So when a speaker's speaking, I listen.
right,
When I'm reading that, they call it a basic text because you're supposed to read it again and again
again,
and
right,
again.
right,
And I have a different highlighter every time I read it.
right,
I've always tried to be a part of a book study
right,
or a Bible study. You
right,
know what I mean? Because then you just kind of you get the bad out and you put the good in.
right.
And
Well, that's where the renewing of the mind comes from. It talks about in Romans,
yeah,
that our minds will be renewed, right? But it's a process. I've got to continue to put this stuff in. So let me, like you talked about them voices, right? So a couple days ago, the lady I live with, guys, she's 84 years old, complete angel. Lady's been serving the Lord since before she was born, probably in mama's womb, and she never has probably said a cuss word in her life. And I don't know what God's brought me here to help her, right? And she wanted to paint the basement floor.
okay,
And I'm like, why? Right? It's the basement. We don't hang out down there. Why? And I'm walking, so I had to get this vanity sink out of the basement so she could paint it. And I had to break it up because it was too heavy. So I'm headed to the shop to get a hammer. And in the middle of that yard, all of a sudden it hit me. It might not mean nothing to you, but it means something to her.
yeah,
And like a bolt of lightning, right? I heard
yeah,
this voice in my head clear as it got. It means something to her, right?
yeah,
And then it was time to get out of myself. And no matter if I want to do it or not, I still got to show up for her,
yeah.
And those voices, once you get quiet enough to where you can hear it, you're going to hear it.
You know, you know where I live at there, where my program's at there. I'm right in the thick of things.
Yeah, oh,
I'm
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm a half a mile from the homeless shelter,
Right.
and so coming up Baker from California, I call that my gratitude drive.
I bet it's got bad.
And if not for the grace of God, there go I.
Right.
You know what I mean? And and I got to tell you this, Anthony. I drive down there and I see people that used to be in my program, that used to be successful, that used to have jobs. Now they're walking up and down the streets talking to themselves.
Right.
Or Roberts Lane there in Oildale.
Yeah.
That's how I go to work. And it's like the apocalypse.
Right.
Just seeing it. It's zombies. They're zombies. They're just like stuck on stupid.
Right.
They're walking and at one time I knew them. So when you work in recovery as long as I have, well, you've worked with guys for 25, 30 years. And
Right.
so they come in and out, in and out. And each time they come back, you see the deterioration, be it
Right.
physical, be it spiritual, be it, mental, and the rolling of the tongue or the jerking, that they
Right.
can't help. And you're just like, and then one guy, he told me, he said, I was getting the good shit, Lynn. And I go, is that right? Is that why half your teeth's missing?
Yeah.
He ain't got hardly a tooth in his head. He was getting the good stuff.
But it is, I when it talks about the second step, talking about a higher power restoring me to sanity.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Pop, you remember all the psych meds I used to take when I was at your house?
Yeah.
I don't take them no more.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
You know what I mean? I don't take them anymore. But
Yeah.
it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
It took a
Yeah.
lot of work. And I'll be honest, my head's gotten, since I started the service and being service to people,
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better.
It gets you out of yourself.
Right. And I think that's the cure for depression, all that. You got to get out of yourself, quit worrying about things, go help somebody out. And next thing you know, you're not normal, but I'm still kind of twisted a little bit, but at least I'm able to stop, right? Like, I'm able to go, okay, Anthony, that's not a good idea. And I wasn't able to do that for years.
No, I respond instead of react.
Right.
Inside the prison systems here in California, they've been given a green light to medicate them. And today, they literally give them methadone, Suboxone.
Oh, yeah.
They will, because they can better control the masses if they're all medicated.
Right.
If you've got a violent offender, right, and you sedate him, guess what? He's a lot easier to manage.
Right.
So I was that guy, and I was deemed a threat to the general population, and I was that they put in a single cell.
Right.
And while I'm in that single cell, here comes a psych tech to reevaluate me. And the next thing you know, he's put me on medication for depression.
Right.
And then he's put, how you sleeping? I'm not. He's giving me something for sleeping.
Yeah.
I stayed in that single cell for a long time.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we get another visit, maybe 30 days later.
Right.
And here he comes back. I wanted more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm in a single cell, so there's no TVs, there's no radios.
Right.
They had a little library on a cart that come by once a week, and you could get 2 books. Right. And they were them little Louis L'Amour paperbacks.
Yeah.
And I could read one of them in one day.
I know.
So I guess what I'm saying is I ended up in Folsom Prison, and it's 1995. And the friends there, we call them homies, my homeboys, they're like, I'm all puffed up because it makes you retain water.
Right.
Look at you. What are you doing? I'm all white. I'm pitch white because I just come out of the hole.
Right.
And so they don't talk to you about side effects. They don't tell you that this pill creates a need for that pill. Right. And that pill creates a need for that restless leg syndrome and all this. They don't tell you racing thoughts. They don't tell you that sometimes they cause suicidal tendencies. They're giving you a pill for depression that might cause this.
Right.
So right there in Folsom Prison, I had that spiritual awakening.
Right.
And I said that prayer that you guys taught me years ago. And I asked God to help me, and what I came to realize is I learned about diet. I learned to shy away from sugar, caffeine. Of course, I'm incarcerated, so there was no monsters.
Right.
And then exercise was my savior then, and the Bible. Right. And I started doing artwork, and artwork was my therapy.
Right.
The church there in Folsom Prison was called the Greystone Chapel.
Right.
The most spiritual building I've ever been in. Mind you, we're talking 30 years ago.
Yeah, Folsom 30 years ago was no joke, Pop.
2/3 of the population was doing life.
Right.
Okay? At least half. I'm not exactly sure.
Right.
But, a lot of them, we call them dead man walking.
Right.
My workout partner was doing 88 to life.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so, and I didn't think I was ever getting out. I had 2 DA referrals that they hadn't come at me on. And so I really didn't think I was ever getting out. I figured they'd just wait till my release date and then come at me with a DA referral.
Yeah, let you walk out the gate. Yeah.
That happened to me in the county years ago.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, and so, I'm here by the grace of God.
Right.
I did 28 months on that term. And, and I started doing a lot of spiritual stuff. I started doing a lot of what you guys suggested. I started getting out of myself. I found my why. You got to find your why.
Right.
You know what I mean? Uh, the reason to fight. And I've had to tuck up, and, you know what I mean, and take a
Yeah.
few punches.
Right.
When the economy crashed here in 2009, I got hit and I got hit hard. I almost folded. And I don't want to get off course, but I just know that all I know is if you get enough curveballs thrown at you,
Right.
you learn how to hit them.
So I just had the same conversation earlier with my daughter, right? So my daughter got married last year, Lynn.
Okay.
She gets married, right? She came up here. Her and her husband, they're in
Oh,
St. George, Utah.
okay.
And she flew up here, and so me and Grandpa wouldn't have to go so far. And they got married up here. A friend of mine in the program married him, and so she calls me today, and they've only been on their own for a year, right?
Okay.
And she says, "Dad, I'm having a hard time." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" "Well, we wrecked a car, and we had $15,000 in our bank account, Dad, but all now we got is nine." And I went, "Nine? Jordan, you're doing better than 95% of the people I know."
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
goes, I said,
9,000.
$9,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah, she just turned 21, Lynn. And in a year's time, they went from nothing to saving up 15 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, child, well, you're gonna have to teach me what you're doing because your dad can't do it that good. And but then I had to have that same conversation with her about being grateful, right? I
Uh-huh.
said, look, man, is it hot outside? She goes, yeah, it's like 110. Are you cool? Yeah, grateful, right?
Yeah.
Said, the car things, that's life. That's gonna happen. I was able to implement the things that I've been taught over the years into my daughter.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Everybody in the world needs a 12-step program. They just don't know it.
You know, I actually wish that on people.
Right.
I've got family members that, and I don't know, at one time, 1 in 10 people found the rooms of recovery
Right.
because of the court system, and they call it evidence based.
Right.
So Alcoholics Anonymous and every other kind of 12-step program is a proven remedy for our problems.
Right.
And so now the court systems, the probation officers, even the bosses have sent me people.
Right.
I've had people's bosses, in other words, they had to at least spend 6 months at my program or they couldn't work for him.
Right.
And they had to stay the first 30 days until they got to go back to work. So their boss was their parole officer. So it's a proven remedy. You know what I mean? The 12-step program is a proven. And, when I talked about earlier, they said, what, you will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle you. It blows me away that Freedom House has been in existence for 25 years. We're literally the oldest program in Bakersfield.
Right.
And we're actually the largest also.
I'm gonna probably. I mean, you probably got a good shot of being one of the oldest in California.
Maybe, I don't know, but that's a good feeling because when I got here, I looked up to the Animal House, the Willows,
Right.
Jason's Retreat, and none of them. Jason's Retreat folded here about 6-8 months ago. Now, different people came in, and it's no longer the same. They're investors,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
so they're trying a different model, but and of course, I took over the Animal House.
Right.
I was offered the Willows. In fact, I don't know. You look back, and you just realize God was there all along. Most everybody that I run amok with is now dead.
Right.
I'm 71 years old, soon to be 72, and I just get amazed. I get, like you said, grateful.
Grateful.
I hear it all the time, man. and me and my wife, we've got this little ranch and we've got horses, we've got cows, we've got chickens, and we had two ducks, but one of them died the other day, you know. And so we got plans.
Yeah.
And initially I was going to start a little recovery home there. And, and I was going to sell this place. And, and then I've got my dad.
Right.
And so my mom died about 4 years ago. It took a while, but my dad moved in with us damn near 2 years ago.
Right.
So I made the promise that I would keep my house here in Rosedale,
Yeah.
and I've got a big house.
I
So
remember. I've been there.
he lives in the mother-in-law's quarter.
Oh,
My dad does, right?
yeah.
Uh, and this is a man that I stole his guns. I wrote hot checks. I did everything you can imagine to that man. He helped me start a business that I squandered. You
Right.
know what I mean? He helped me start a business that I put in my arm. You know what I mean? And, and he's 89 years old, soon to be 90, and I take care of him now. I'm his caregiver. You
You know
know?
what's crazy, Lynn? Like I stole my dad's guns too.
Yeah,
Let me tell you something. And I mean, just like you said right now, right? Like my dad doesn't have any reason to ever talk to me again.
sure.
That's by the grace of God, right? So I did. I stole a set of his and her Savage side by side 12 and 20 gauge matching shotguns,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I sold them. And he got home and called me when he realized a couple of days later they weren't in the closet. And I didn't know the story behind them guns. I just took them,
Same here.
and they
Same
were
here.
a wedding gift to my mom and dad
Wow.
from a friend of his.
Yeah.
And it was probably 20 years he threw that in my face every time he got mad at me.
My dad never threw it in my face. It took me over 2 years, Anthony, for me to tell my dad I did that.
Oh,
They tell you to make a list of people you had
yeah,
harmed, and then you become willing. I was willing, but the time never was right.
right,
And you know what I did up until I made the amends, is I quit calling Mama Collect.
right, right,
I became self-sufficient. I became self-supporting. And
right,
I was there when my mom had her open heart surgery. I
right,
was there when my little nephew got hit by a car and ended up in a coma. I was there to drive him up to Fresno, the children's hospital there.
right.
So, you know what I mean? I became his son.
That's
And
where I'm
then,
at now.
and then when it came time for me to tell him, back, my nephew was in a coma and we're driving, he lived up the lake. And so we're driving up the lake because he had his dogs. And we're there at the hospital. And my mom's there. Me and my dad went up to the lake to feed his dogs. And we're driving up there. And God just kept nudging my heart, kept nudging my heart. And I told him what I had done. And he knew all along. He knew all along, you know. And so since then, I bought him a pistol.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Since then, I mean, I'm taking care of him.
yeah. And
They
that's
tell me they tell me that I could get money for taking care of him, and how wrong is that?
right,
Nobody got to pay me to take care of my dad,
right,
and of course, I'm blessed enough to
right,
to to be financially better than some people.
right,
If some people have to quit a job to take care of their parents, that
right,
might be one thing, but I'm kind of semi-retired,
right.
and so I'm able to do that. And what a gift! What a gift! We sit at night and we always watch a cowboy movie, Gunsmoke, Fox
That's what
News,
my dad.
Fox
He
News and
watches
sports.
Gunsmoke. And my dad watches Gunsmoke every day.
We watch it every day. Heat of the night, Guns,
Yeah. You know,
Rifleman.
and I'm glad I got that. So my dad retired too, Pop, and he moved up here. And he moved up here because my mom had passed 2 years, 4 years ago.
Yeah,
And I got to be there for that, right? I showed up for that, and I flew down there on a red eye flight, and I made it a half hour after she passed. And my brother and my dad are trying to fight hospice off so I could get there in time. And then he retired. He sold the house down there and he moved up here because I'm the only person he thinks is going to take care of him. And that's what recovery's given me.
Yeah.
You
Amen.
know, not my brother. My brother's fixing to come up here. I'm going to have to take care of it too.
So
Yeah. Well, Pop, hey, I love you.
I love you too,
I'll tell
bud.
you right now, man, it's good to see your face, Pop.
We'll do this again, okay?
We will. We will.
To your audience, thank you. God bless. And if me and this knucklehead can change our lives, any and every one of you guys can. Take care. God bless.
God bless.